worked with some of the staff, and they've been wonderful to work with, Emma and Caleb both. And so at this point, I'm just going to turn the mic over to you, Senator Mullin.
I think we're going to do I think we got 4-H students going to do some stuff.
Oh, well then, I'm going to turn the mic over to the 4-H students.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, guys. All right, now I'll turn it over to Senator Mullin.
Can you guys, everybody hear me? The mic. Okay. I don't normally do this, but I'm going to turn my phone on because my daughter's been having truck problems, and I told her it's emergency. She's going to call me 3 times, and so yesterday she had an issue, and she said she called me, and I didn't answer her, and she got upset. So I'm just trying to be a good dad. So if I have to take that, I'll apologize. Guys, thanks for being here. I do appreciate it. We're literally flying all over the state right now. We was in Southwest Oklahoma yesterday, and now we're up here. It's been kind of exciting. I kind of had a really good day actually, because I crawled up in the front right seat with the pilot today or yesterday, and I told her, I said, I want to learn how to fly. He's like, really? And I was like, yeah. So on the way back, because on the way back we actually had to get to take out a landing strip that was in Texas, and so on the way back, as soon as we took off, he says, "You want to fly? Take it." And I was like, "What?" And he said, "Take it." And I was like, "Seriously?" And so he says, "I'm a flight instructor." He says, "So if you want to fly, we're going to start logging the hours now." And so we started flying, and it was kind of cool because he's having to go around some of the clouds, which to me was like stored in the hills or something. I felt like a little kid again. And when I got home, I was all giddy, and my wife said, "You seem like a little kid." And then today, as soon as we took off, he says, "It's yours," all the way to the landing. And Kate, who's from DC, she's my communication director, she was in the back of the plane. She didn't know I was flying it. And I was like, "Why do you think it was doing like this?" She was like, "Well, I thought it was the wind was blowing." I was like, "Oh, I'm trying to land this thing." And by the way, I'm flying back, and she's getting back in the plane. I don't know what's wrong.
Now I know.
So I've already had a good day today, and then a while ago you all fed me, and that's the first time I got to eat this morning. My alarm went off at 4:51. It's supposed to go off at 4:52, but it went off at 4:51 today. By the way, the reason why it goes off at 4:52 is because it's before 5, and I can hit snooze once and still wake up before 5. And you know, my family, we had to get up at 3 because we used to milk, so we had to get up at 3 and barn at 3:30. The cows came in at 4, and so I feel like I'm still sleeping in. I could hear stood of my dad when I didn't get up. He had to wake me up. Anyways, that's a rabbit trail. Guys, but seriously, thank you for being here. Just a little bit about myself. I've been blessed to live in the same place that my family's been living since about the 1830s. I'm Cherokee, and so my family came over on what they call a volunteer walk. That's historically, people get upset and say, "It's what a volunteer walk, what it's for." Well, I get that. But it was volunteer walks the way history reads it. And it's still part of the Trail of Tears. I live in a little town called Westville because it's the first town west of Arkansas. I live close enough to Arkansas. My back section lines of our ranch is close enough to Arkansas that I can date a cousin. I just can't marry him. My wife is not a cousin. and my wife and I, we've been boyfriend girlfriend pretty much since 3rd grade. And in 3rd grade, I fell in love with a girl. In 8th grade, I knew I was going to marry her. And we got married when I was 19. She was 18. I was wrestling in college. She was cheering in college. And we have 6 wonderful kids that we've been married 27 years. And we have 3 kids that came natural and 3 kids that we chose. So 3 we got stuck with, 3 we chose. So I always tell people, which one do you think we love the most? So we have our bookends are adopted. Jace, who is the oldest, he's going to be 21 next month. He wrestles at Oklahoma State. We adopted him when he was 14. And then Jim, our oldest biological son, he is 6 months younger. He also wrestles at Oklahoma State. And then we have Andrew, who is honestly the best kid. I mean, he's like the one we all really like. Everybody likes him. And he went to OU to wrestle. And so we're praying for him. I don't know what happened there. I thought I raised my kids better than that. But somehow I don't know. He's still a good kid. We're just praying to find salvation. And then we have three beautiful daughters. Lara, who is 16, she just recently turned 16. And I hope it's not that I didn't teach her how to handle a vehicle better than this, but I think she's actually having mechanical problems. She's the one on the block. We're going to have to answer the call. And then I got our twins, who we adopted when they were 2. They're 13, going on 28. It's obvious that they have no blood from me in them because they're very, very intelligent. I have no idea where that comes from. But I mean, these girls are just brilliant. I mean, all my kids I've been blessed. They're just really good-looking kids, and smart, and work hard. Mom, I say mom, I call her mom. Christy did a good job raising them because I was gone all the time. And so that's who I am. I tell people I'm a husband, a father to my wife of 27 years, and I'm a Christian. I didn't get saved until I was 20. I was raised Pentecostal my whole life. I went to church out of respect for my parents, though, because I moved out when I was 15. And not because I had a bad house, a really good house. I was just really independent, and we had a small house. And when you're the youngest of 7, you don't get the bedroom. You get the leftovers, and that means you don't get the first one, the bathroom, and there was only one bathroom. So, I still like to go pee outside. Anyways, and then things are just was a little bit different, and so I still went to church even when I moved out. I still went to church with my parents on Sunday morning and Sunday night out of respect for them. But I didn't give my heart to the Lord until I was 20. I'm not saying I'm a perfect kid, a perfect guy. I tell people I'm the biggest hypocrite you'll ever meet, because at some point I'm going to make a mistake. If you think I'm perfect, I'm going to fail you. But I try to do my best every day. And the reason why I got in politics is because I got fed up, right? I think we can all say that. You guys wouldn't be here otherwise. My first political event I ever went to in my life was when I stood up and said I was running for Congress. But we have a saying in our family, you're never going to change anything you're willing to tolerate. Now, think about what I'm saying there. A lot of times we complain, we gripe about stuff, but we actually don't do anything. That's not you guys, because you guys are here. But I don't believe in complaining about something unless I'm going to be able to do it. Right? I may not be able to do it even. I don't know. I mean, I'm serious. So I'm not going to complain about it. I'm going to waste my time complaining about it. There'll be a Monday morning quarterback. I'm not going to complain about it unless I'm going to get all in. And we had the EPA shut down one of our companies back in 2011, April 2011. No fault of ours. We'd never been fined. Never had any issues with them. It wasn't because I wasn't able to hire right. It wasn't because I wasn't able to finance it right. It wasn't because I wasn't able to find a niche. The company was growing, expanded. It was making money. And because of some basis bureaucrat in Washington, D.C., they changed the regulation that put our equipment that we had a patent pending on out of compliance, and it put us out of business. Until then, I probably would have never got involved in politics. But here I am. And when I got involved in politics, I found there's some stuff out there that's not right. There's a lot of people out there that just don't quite tell you everything that's going on. And so that's what I want to talk about just a little bit, and then I want you guys to pepper me with questions, especially younger people, especially you guys. I want everybody to just pepper me with questions. Ask me about my kids, ask me about my life, ask me about what's going on in politics. That's not it, but it is Trump's team. It's not him. So he did call me earlier today. We was in the town hall meeting, and he called me, and I had to walk away and answer that one. But it's one of the things that surprised me the most is everybody says that Congress is supposed to control the purse strings, right? I mean, that's what they say. Congress controls the purse strings. When I got up there, I realized that we don't control the purse strings. Not even close. We've literally delegated all of our authority away. And people know that. And so when we get back in September, we're going to immediately start trying to figure out how we're going to fund the government. Because we have total appropriation bills that none of them have been passed out of the Senate. And our fiscal year ends September 30th. So by October 1st, we got to have the government funded, or we go into government shutdown. And so everybody's going to be talking about the national debt. We're at $35 trillion, huge issue, major issue. They're going to be talking about our deficit. We're running a $1.6 trillion deficit we zeroed out all 12 other appropriation bills, we would just be able to manage our debt. Because we have to make roughly a $900 billion payment every year just on interest. Just on interest. So even if we zeroed out the other 12 appropriation bills, which we can't because one of them is the NDAA, National Defense Authorization Act, which no one thinks we should be cutting spending right now on defense, do you? But even if we did zero more out, we couldn't pay down the debt. But if we say, well, what if you zero out the other 11 and just keep NDAA? How about that? What if we just keep the defense spending? What would that do? Well, that means that would run us 72% all the way up to 89%. I'm using round numbers here, but it'd run it up roughly up to 89%. So now you're going to try to balance the budget with 11%. It's impossible. You just can't do it. The math doesn't work. So what's in that 72%? Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. And so reforms have to happen. They have to happen. We can't sustain, because if we keep going the path we're going right now, those programs are going to start going insolvent around 2028. So what are we waiting for? Why isn't Congress doing the reforms? Well, think about it. Say the Democrats win November 5th. God help us if that happens, but I'm just saying what it is. So come November 5th, they win. Kamala's in the White House. They win the House of Representatives. They win the Senate, and the Democrats control it. They know they got to fix it. What's the first thing that's going to happen when they try to fix it? Republicans are going to blame them for trying to throw the baby out the bathwater. Or switch it, and Trump wins. We maintain the House, and we win the Senate. And we try to do it. The Democrats are going to accuse us of doing the exact same thing. And so what really is going to have to happen is actually going to take it back together. It's going to take either a Republican or a Democrat president working with Republican or Democrat Congress. That way everybody's bought in, and we're going to be forced to make the change. And what are some of the changes we've got to make? Well, one, we should kick people off that shouldn't be there. If you didn't pay into the program, you shouldn't be there. If you didn't pay into Social Security and Medicare, you shouldn't be there. Medicaid's a little bit different. It's a state reimbursement. That's kind of designed for some of that. And I'm okay with that. We can talk about that later, though. But if you didn't pay into it, you shouldn't be there, period. Think about how many people we've allowed to come into this country illegally just in the last 3.8 months, or 3 years, 8 months. So let's say 4 years. We're at 10,200,000 people. 10,200,000 people are in this country that came over illegally, but they're legally here now. So essentially they're wards of the state. Because they came over illegally, they claimed asylum, they got paroled, which 85% got paroled within 24 hours. If you want to look at the bigger picture, 94% was paroled within 36 hours. They were given a court date that said show back up to 6 to 9 years, depending on where the court is, which most of them aren't going to show back up. But while they're here legally. So when they're here legally, they can apply for these social programs. They can actually apply for Social Security disability. They're definitely on Medicaid, because one thing that didn't happen is while they're here legally, they didn't automatically get a work visa. So they're here legally. Who sponsored them? The taxpayers. Now you think about the 10.2 million people. Do you realize that's almost 2.5 times the size of Oklahoma? That's a population base that's bigger than Nebraska, South Dakota, North Dakota, Wyoming, and Montana combined. We had that many people that's on those programs. You want to know why it's better to go insolvent? And we're not talking about this stuff. The news isn't talking about this stuff. You see Medicaid programs, like in California, that are just literally about ready to go bankrupt. Because so many of the individuals that are walking into their hospitals now that Medicaid's having to cover aren't paying into anything into the state. They're not paying a penny into the taxes. They're not paying anything. They're living there off the taxpayers, and now they're receiving free medical care. You want to know why your private insurance is so high? Because when they can't pay, the hospital's got to make it up someplace. They got to make it up someplace, so if they can't pay, that means that your insurance is going to go higher because the hospital's going to charge higher rates. And the higher rates go up, state, they do line item appropriations. Now, to get back to that, how many of you guys think earmarks are a good thing? Now, how many of y'all even know what earmarks is? Okay. How many of you guys don't know what earmarks is? Okay, I only saw like 5 hands go up, and there's a lot more than that. This is like me asking for an offering, and I'm not asking for anything. I just want to know if I need to explain this to you all. So how many of y'all do not know what earmarks are? I really need to see it. Okay. So have you guys ever heard of the bridge to nowhere? Yes, sorry. So what earmarks was, which we don't do anymore, it was a way to actually appropriate. So a member of Congress, be it in the Senate or House, they set up a budget in the appropriation bill, let's say for Department of Transportation. And there's a bridge that needs to be built in Alva, right? And it's a bridge that the state doesn't have the money for. It's a bridge that the county doesn't have the money for. And it's really not a federal highway, but the problem is it still needs to be fixed. So I'm going to appropriate the dollars to be able to give it to the states, so the states can give it to the county, so the bridge can get put in, and then hopefully it gets aimed at. That is what you would consider kind of earmarks were. That's what the public was perceived that the earmarks were. That's what the media said that was what the earmarks were only for. It was just a way for members to get their names on stuff, and it caused the system to be corrupt. And what it really was, it was because they called it earmarks, is really what it was line item appropriations. And right now, we're running this $1.6 trillion deficit. And we got a $35 trillion debt that's owed by somebody. And yet the state operates off of line item appropriations, not earmarks. They don't call it earmarks, they call it line item appropriations. And they're running a surplus, and they only spend roughly 90% that comes in. And they're saving 10%. Why? Because the state legislators have to budget every single penny. Every penny is accounted for. But the way we do it, since we no longer do earmarks, since we took away the ability to do earmarks, or really what I like to call line item appropriations, what we've done is now we no longer can do individual line items. We don't budget every penny. In fact, what we do is we give a huge chunk of money to an agency, and since we can't tell them how to spend it, someone else makes that decision. Who's going to make the decision on who to spend the money in the agency? It's probably the head of the agency, either the director or the secretary. And who is that director or secretary appointed by? Who? The president. So Congress now has delegated their authority, because it wasn't politically correct for us to do that, evidently, because we didn't explain to the American people. We gave that authority now to the president, to the executive branch. And if we're not appropriating the pennies, then how are we watching the dollars? Because if you're not paying attention to the pennies, you're not going to pay attention to dollars. You're not paying attention to dollars. You're not going to pay attention to $100. You're not paying attention to $100. You're not going to pay attention to thousands. You're not paying attention to thousands. You're not going to pay attention to millions. You're not going to pay attention to billions. You're not going to pay attention to billions. You're not paying attention to billions. You're not going to pay attention to trillions. It's just the way it works. It's not kind of like me in one of our companies. If I just gave the department a budget and didn't tell them to spend how they spend it, and they choose to put pink roses on everybody's desk and every single morning because they like the way they spend it. It'd be a waste of money. But since I didn't tell them to spend it, can I really get mad at the way they spend it? Because I didn't appropriate it for them. I didn't tell them they need to, this is your budget, this is what you need to spend it on. And that's what happens right now in Congress. And so if we don't bring back line item appropriations, we'll never be able to get fiscally responsible again. It's just not possible. It's not possible for us to do that. And yet, there's people out there saying they don't vote for this or they don't vote for that because we need to balance the budget first. But the question to be asked to them, why are you allowing 72% of the government to be on autopilot? Why aren't you for line item appropriations? Because you can't do that. It doesn't work unless you bring those two back. You guys understand what I'm talking about? So, with this whole month, when we start seeing what's happening, they had the government shutdown clock that's going to be ran. Because I know we're not going to go to shutdown, but we're going to wait. Because we do really good at waiting to the last minute to do anything in Congress. You're going to see this clock go. We're going to pass what they call a continued resolution, a CR. Continued resolution says, hey, we think the government is running perfect, so we're just going to re-up it, and keep everything spinning exactly the way that it is right now. That's what a CR is. That means that we didn't do our job, we didn't appropriate the dollars, and we're not going to do anything. We're just going to keep it going the way they are. And that's what's going to happen. That's how we're going to end up doing this, at least for a few months at a time. I go back to this, is people say, where did it get messed up at? And I'm not saying that Speaker Gingrich is his fault. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that sometimes Congress overreacts. Because there was a point that earmarks were being abused. No question about it. They went too far, which always happens. You know, you give a little and you end up taking a whole lot. They were getting abused, but instead of us actually fixing the problem, what we did is we just eliminated it all, and now we created a much bigger problem. And so underneath Newt Gingrich, what happened is they had the New Deal with America, right? Remember that? And they're going to come up and they're going to clean house. And that's when they eliminated the earmarks ability, and that's what led us here today. It's okay to make changes, but sometimes you need to admit you made a mistake. And you can look at what went wrong, and you're not destined to make those mistakes again. You know, I tell people I mess up all the time, but I don't wallow in my mistake. What I do is, with a mistake, I look at it, I figure out what I did wrong, I own it, and I move forward. I tell people all the time, I've never fired a single individual ever, and I've fired my share of people. I've never fired anybody for making a mistake. I'll fire you when you can't admit you made a mistake. Why? They don't learn. That's right. They can't learn. If they can't admit they made a mistake, they're destined to make that same mistake again. If they come up and they start having 1,000 excuses why they made that mistake, I'm like, hold up. There's always a reason. You made it. I don't care what the excuse is, what led you to that decision. Own it. Let's go. Let's move. We're good. Right now, Congress has made a mistake. We've overreacted. We need to correct it. If we don't, we're going to be having the same conversation, except the deficit is going to be at $45 trillion. It's going to continue to climb. It's going to be at $50 trillion. And eventually, we're going to bankrupt ourselves. Because that's what we're headed. This is the first time since World War II that we're paying more in interest payments than we are in our defense. And I'm saying pre-World War II, or past, not pre. Post-World War II. Because we had obviously had a lot of debt we had to pay off, and that only lasted for 1 decade, 10 years. There's no end inside of this. So with that, I want to stop. I know I went down that road with you, but you guys take me wherever you want to go. Because you guys ask me questions, right? And don't make me sit here and look at you, because I'll start calling on these young people. Yes, sir.
While you're on
I've already called the lady with the notepad.
While you're on the debt issue, you apparently are passionate about the issue that there is, but how many more of you are there in Washington that truly see that it's an issue?
You know, that's a good question. I can't speak for the House. There's a lot of people in the House that talk about it. You know, I started in the House for 10 years. But I really had, it's been the 10 years I was there was never really a strong working group to actually say how we're going to tackle this. And the way you tackle it, you have to change the entire appropriation process. You have to change it. The appropriation process is broke. There's a reason why we never can get the 12 appropriation bills done. We have to change that. There's a group right now that we have put together. Myself, Katie Britt, Eric Schmidt from Missouri, Katie Britt from Alabama. Her husband is a huge human being. He played football for Alabama as a lineman, and he played for the Patriots as a lineman. And I still call him a loser because he's the only one who played for Alabama and the Patriots and never won a championship. I don't even know how he's done that in the last 2 decades, but he managed to do that. His name's Wesley Britt. He's a wonderful guy. He's a dear friend of mine. I mean, I really like him, but I had to put that out there because I make fun of him all the time. He's either the most unluckiest person I ever met in my life, or just that bad. And so he played professional ball. It's like, who am I to tell him that? And a guy named Pete Ricketts, who he used to be the former governor of Nebraska, and a guy named Ted Budd from North Carolina. And John Thune, who will probably be the next leader of the Republican Party in the Senate, which means he'll probably take Mitch McConnell's spot, has literally worked with us on this and said, okay, let's do this. You're right, we need to do it. Another strong advocate of ours is helping, and some of you guys that know politics may roll your surprised when I mentioned this person's name, but I've seen, she seemed to be very helpful lately, is Susan Collins. And Susan has this bad reputation sometimes because she has a tendency to swing a vote with the Democrats on certain things. But she's the appropriation chair, and she's also gave us a green light to really start working on trying to change the appropriation process because she's the appropriator, and she knows the system broke. And so there is a group of us that's a strong group, and it doesn't take large numbers in the Senate to make a change. In the House, it takes large numbers. In the Senate, it doesn't. So there's a group of us that's already started working on it, enough to them where they're talking about putting me on appropriations, switching me from one committee and putting me on appropriations because they're working so heavy on this. And it's just, listen, this problem isn't going to be fixed next year. That we didn't get here overnight, we're not going to fix it overnight. But we got to slowly get to where we are. There was a radical change that took place underneath Newt, and I'm not saying radical in a bad way, I'm saying radical with big changes, big new ideas they thought they were doing was right. I don't disagree with what the decision they made at that time. I think they really thought they were making the best decision. But now we see that it's messed up. We can't make that bigger change all at once, but we can slowly start changing that back. And I think one of the pivotal points we have to bring back line item appropriations. We just got to get the talk show host to not call it earmarks at that point. This isn't the old time of earmarks. This is line item appropriation just like the state does. If our federal government operated like the state, we wouldn't be in debt. So if it's good enough for the state level, why is it good enough for us? We're dealing with bigger numbers, I understand that. But numbers are numbers. The math doesn't change. I don't care which way you do it. The math doesn't change just because you have the numbers to it. They still either equal or they don't. It's either balances or it doesn't. It's that simple. And so I think we can get there. It's just going to take some time. What else? Yes, sir. Do you guys mind introducing yourselves? Every meeting I went into so far, I've got to shake everybody's hand and meet them, and I didn't get to do that here, so I apologize. Yeah.
I'm Eric Williams. I work here at the college. But speaking on trying to get it fixed,
So what do you do here?
I'm the assistant bursar.
Assistant what?
Bursar.
I have no idea.
I work in the business office.
Okay, thank you. Thank God I know that since I'm in business, but I didn't. Sorry. I would like to put you with the rodeo team or something. It definitely is teamwork. Maybe stir us. Sorry to see you stir. See your knees. You got knee braces?
I have two fake knees.
Okay, there you go.
But speaking on fixing that, are you just going to fix after the 72%? Because isn't there a lot more programs that need to be fixed before we get to this point?
You got to get into the reform of the 72%. There's no question you have to do it, except it's political and policy doesn't matter in DC. It's the timing that matters. Now, understand what I'm talking about. The policy doesn't matter right now. The timing makes it retail politics. So right now between the two national, tickets, right? Kamala, always mess up. It's pronounced Kamala, and I always mess up, so I just say Harris. So between Harris and Trump, is it the policy that really matters to people, or is the retail, what they're saying now, that matters? How I feel. So policy has been forgotten a long time ago, and it's become retail. So when you go to fix this, the timing has to be perfect, meaning the American people are wanting it because now it's a retail. And I think the American people are getting there, but it takes some time. And so that 72%, when people start realizing that these programs are going to start becoming insolvent in 2028, they're going to start getting worried. We're not going to default on it, but we're going to be forced to do it. People will be open to do it. Until then, Congress just won't have the will to do it. Because, as I said before, if the Republicans have control, the Democrats have control, the reason why we won't do it is because the other side will blame us, and then 2 years from then, or whenever the midterm elections happen, we'll have a bloodbath for whatever party it is, and they will flip. It'll flip. Congress will flip. And so it's about sustainability, which is why it's going to take a divided government. Which means, I doubt very seriously if it'll happen within the next 2 years. It could happen in the last 2 years, because it's also going to take a president that's not up for re-election. I mean, the last time that we actually did some reform was with Bill Clinton in his second term. That was post-Monica. And so, sorry I throw that one out. After fond of the heart. Bill Clinton did this in his last 2 years in office because he was past the midterm election and he had a divided government and he wanted to get it done, and so he worked with Congress. And so it'll take a divided government, which has got to be the timing, and it'll have to take a president that's lamed up. Which is why it won't happen the first 2 years, after 2 years. Which the irony about that will be that'll be year 2027. It'll be 1 year right before we got to do it, and that's probably when you'll start seeing a lot of reforms take place. In the meantime, there'll be a lot of conversations happening. It just won't be real public conversations on how we need to fix it. Yes, sir.
So,
Give your name.
Jacob Martin.
Jacob. Okay.
So, you've talked about needing to reform the appropriations process, but one of the biggest roadblocks that stands in the way of policy, specifically in the Senate, is the filibuster, because it can be used by either side. So, do you believe that that needs to be changed in order to allow progress to be made? Because there's always going to be someone that's going to talk their way towards blocking legislation, whether on one side or another. So, what's your opinion on that?
Well, you're never going to get everybody to yes. If you find a bill that everybody's yes on, take a hard look at it, because it probably didn't have a whole lot of substance. It was just some messaging. Because that's when you only get 100%. Filibuster's there because the House is ruled by what? The majority. So if you get 218, the majority rules, which is why they don't have to work with each other. If Nancy Pelosi's in charge, then Nancy Pelosi can do whatever she wants, which is why you have all types of messaging bills that get passed in the House, and then they die in the Senate. The Senate is the chamber that's for the minority to have the rules. So there was a lot of people that have individual authority to be able to stop stuff. That's really the filibuster isn't used that often. I mean, has the filibuster even been used the last year and a half? Nope. I've been in the Senate now for 1 year and 8 months. It's not ever been used since I've been. It's been threatened, but it hasn't ever been used. So the filibuster is used on some of the most extreme situations. So I'm not for getting the filibuster away because it's the way the minority can stop something if it's absolutely going to be detrimental. Because the minority has to have a voice too. Their voice matters. Our founding fathers was extremely smart when they said it in the two chambers. Even though we complain, and a lot of people say, well, why can't you all just get along? I always remind people that our founding fathers, if you read the Federalist Papers, they designed it for us not to get along. If they wanted us to get along, they would have a ruling class assigned. They said everybody had to have a certain degree. Everybody has to come from a certain bloodline. Everybody had to be located in a certain geographical area, because that's how a ruling class begins to rule. Our founding fathers set us up to be dysfunctional because they wanted government to be slow, because they wanted to be ruled by the people for the people. So they never wanted just a minority or a majority to rule. They wanted the people to rule. So and I go back to that. The House is set for the majority. The Senate is set up for the minority. And that's one place we get to have a voice. So regardless, and both sides get upset. You know, the Republicans are upset when the Democrats filibuster something we want, and then the Democrats or the Republicans start crying, saying we need to get rid of filibuster. Switch it around, and we'll say the exact same thing the following election if it happens. So I'm not for getting rid of it. It's just part of the rules, and we have to work through that process. And we've been working through that process for conception of the Senate so far, and the country has survived this far. So I take taking the filibuster away is kind of like packing the courts, because you're going to allow the minority at that, or the majority at that point, to rule from then on.
We have time for 2 more questions.
I'll make it quick, and I'll be here. Emma's been driving me, which I've never allowed a field rep to ever drive me in 12 years in office. I'm just really, which is why I'm actually flying the plane now, right? Because call me a control freak, whatever you want. I don't care what you call me. I just like to be in control. It's like my first time to ever jump out of a plane was at 12,000 foot, and I jumped out by myself with a parachute. And everybody was like, "You're crazy. Why didn't you go tandem the first time?" I was like, "Didn't want some dude strapped up behind me depending on my life. You know, what if he brings out? And then I can't pull it forward. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me. I want to control my own destiny." So my whole thing about that is different. Anyways, Emma's been driving. She's been doing really good, because since I've been flying here, I don't have a vehicle, and she actually drives really good.
fixing the broken system, considering that these professions, in Oklahoma especially, the dual household income is only $63,000. And the average bills per month is just about $4,800, which is over the 40% that they furnish with the NHA foundation.
I'm not going to fix the wage issue. That's driven by the profession. That's driven by the state. You know, you take firefighters, you take teachers, you go to different states, you get paid different. I don't think the federal government should be mandating wages at all. Even when you get to the minimum wage, right? I said this 12 years ago. I got brought up on the MSNBC because I said, Obama at that time was really trying to push for an increase in minimum wage. I said, you can raise minimum wage to whatever you want to. It's still going to be minimum wage. Everything else is just going to be indexed on that. So if you want to pay $20 for a McDonald's hamburger, then increase the minimum wage. You're going to get there. Guess what? They're darn near doing that in California right now, right? I got brought up to MSNBC, and MSNBC made a big deal about it. I mean, like a huge deal about it. And so when you increase it, it's kind of like what I tell people with our service industry, our service companies, right? We have large service industry companies that's all over the country now. And I tell people, I said, you increase whatever you want. Increase taxes to 35%, 40% on corporations. It doesn't matter. You guys are going to pay my taxes. Because as a business owner, if you increase the regulation or you increase the wages or you want to do whatever, I'm going to pass that on because I have a duty to my employees to stay in business. And I've got to be able to afford that business. And I've got to be able to increase that cost. So my costs are set. My percentages are set. And so if I'm going to stay in business, I've got to offset everything, which is why it goes up. And when you start talking about this is the big issue. To fix this problem isn't increase wages. The problem is you got to bring down energy costs. Because energy costs is the backbone of everything we do. And if you have high energy costs, you're going to have high inflation. Why? Because you can't make a product and you can't deliver a product without energy. What's funny is that energy, or fuel cost, isn't factored into the federal inflation cost. Isn't it funny? But yet it's actually the driver of all of it. If you show me a country that has unstable energy and high energy costs, I'll show you a third world country. So everything is indexed based on that. It's like I said, it's the backbone of our economy. So if you're actually going to fix that, you're going to bring the cost of living back down because right now, every American household right now, which the average household American across the Oklahoma right now is right at $42,000. The average American family right now is paying an additional $1,085 a month, which is just over $13,000 a year. Holy smokes. How is that even, how do you even absorb that cost? Right? How do you so for us to actually fix this issue, to be able to put it on a level playing field, to bring inflation down where the wages are now able to increase with inflation instead of inflation outpacing wages, then we need to bring down the energy costs, and that will bring down the prices immediately. It'll take a while for the prices to fall, but when you bring down the cost of energy, it allows a little bit of a window for now competitors that can say they can enter this space now because there's margins to be able to enter the space. Because maybe before the margins were 15%, maybe they're at 3%. But now you bring up energy costs, and the guy who's controlling that, controlling the majority of the market, and he bring it down, and now his base now is around 18% or 6%, depending on where the margins are. And no one's been able to enter that because he's keeping the prices too low. If he doesn't lower his prices to keep competitors out, his competitors are going to move in and start taking a percentage. That's competition. That's what a capitalist society looks like. That's what a free economy looks like. And that'll bring down the cost and that'll help it. By the way, that'll also start increasing wages because when somebody else enters the space, now we're competing for the same employee. When we start competing for the same employee, wages are going to start increasing there too. It's just what happens. I've been in business for 27 years and that's what takes place. The first thing that a lot of people do is they'll start looking at the wages. So they want a minimum set of wages and it will cause more inflation to go up. So my job is to look at what's the root cause of inflation to bring down those monthly costs, and that starts with energy. That starts with energy. The second thing is regulatory costs. The regulatory cost is unheard of right now. We can bring down that regulatory cost. When President Trump was in office, for every new regulation he put in, down, that's how you bring down regulatory costs, and you stimulate the economy, and you start driving. You bring down both those factors. Remember when he was in office, we had some of the lowest energy costs we've had in decades in comparison to GDP. He brought down energy costs, he brought down regulatory environment, and we started seeing our economy go through the roof until this, you can call it COVID, take COVID, I don't care what you call it. Either way, I was thankful we lived in Oklahoma at the time. So does that make sense to you?
I didn't so much mean raising the minimum wage
Okay.
as much as controlling inflation and creating more jobs, as we saw listed from the associate several months ago. There was an additional 818,000 jobs that were not there. They were just
Right.
put in the report.
Yeah. You read the right report, I'm glad you did your homework on that. But they were going to adjust their numbers after. They were going to go back and do a post-adjustment of the numbers after the election. That was their whole plan on it. I don't know if you heard what he said, but the jobs report came out and it had 800,000 jobs more that they said was created, which, by the way, I always hate when Washington, D.C. says they created jobs. Washington, D.C. doesn't create jobs. They should never create jobs. They should create an environment for entrepreneurs to create jobs, and when they claim that they're creating jobs, we really screwed up. Really screwed up. But you're right. Now, so, I mean, let it really do some good research on that. What are you getting your degree? Oh, you going to go be an attorney or are you getting into politics? Well, you need to come do an internship. So you need to fill out an internship for us, either summer, fall, or spring internship. And you're a sophomore, I guess? You're going into the sophomore year? You just started your sophomore year? So you need to get hold of Caleb, our state director right back there, and you need to look at an internship for us. And I would suggest you can do one locally in Oklahoma, that's fine. But with the amount of research you've done on that, I'm just going to say you should come to D.C. and just give up a summer if you're willing to do it. You get paid a little bit, and you may hate D.C. too. By the way, with your dress, cowboy boots and stuff, you're probably going to hate D.C. But it'll be a great experience. All right. What else we got? Yes, I knew you was going to ask a question. You had a notebook, and you got the belt buckle to match it.
Thank you. My name is Caitlin Martin, and this is part of my FFA officer team. I was
I
wondering...
can still fit in my coat, by the way. None of my sisters or brothers can.
So, obviously, as future of agriculture, we're kind of wondering on how farm bill is looking,
Yeah.
how that is going to affect us as we go into the workforce as future farmers, because I know all four of us live on a farm, and so that is a very big deal in how we're going to decide to go to college and how we're going to run the farm as we get into our next generation.
Hopefully you run better than I run ours. But my son, he's at one of my boys at OSU. He's actually going for an ag degree and ag marketing too. And so it's big in our family. Here's what I would tell you: the farm bill, nothing's going to happen with the farm bill we got right now. We're operating off an extension off the 2018 farm bill. Technically, it kind of expires September 30th, but we don't run out of money with it until December. We're going to probably do a 6-month extension on it. And the reason why is because the farm bill really isn't the farm bill anymore. We call it the farm bill, but it's really a social program. I don't know the exact numbers, so I'm pulling this off the top of my head, but I think it's just over 80% is actual social programs now. Does anybody know those actual numbers? 81. Who said that? All right, thank you. All right, so I was close. What's your background? Thank you. Okay, so you do know. All right. My ag teacher busted my butt a lot because I couldn't sit at FFA Creek. He messed up. The first time he messed up on FFA Creek was 3 swats. It took 5 different swats for me to get there. And if you ask me to quote it right now, I couldn't even get the first sentence because all I want to do is get that over with because he busted butts hard. So anyway, so the farm bill we're negotiating it, but what's happening right now is, like I said, 81% is on social programs, only 19% is actually farm. And what our whole thing is trying to put more farm in the farm bill. And we're negotiating right now with one Republican in the room and 2 Democrats. And the Democrats want more social programs. And I'm not trying to plead politics, I'm just telling you what it is. There are 4 social programs, and the Republicans right now are for more farm. So if we negotiate right now, we're probably going to take that number from 81% to 83%. I'm in the camp now that the November 5th election election is just down the road. Just pause, wait, since we've already put an extension. Let's see how the November 5th election goes. I'm hoping we'll have 3 Republicans in the room, and we'll be able to actually get a farm bill that puts more farm and less social. And even if we don't, say it even goes back, we're still going to win the Senate. We're going to win the Senate regardless of what happens to the top of the ticket. If for some reason Kamala wins, then the House will probably flip too. So we're still going to have 1 Republican and 2 Democrats in the room. So and nothing changed at that point. But at this point, I'd rather play my odds and say, let's go. Right? That answer your question? Yes. Anything else? What are you pointing at? Am I short on time? You're not short on time. Oh, that's actually Speaker McCall. Yes, sir.
Senator, I just wanted to say thank you.
I got another speaker calling right now.
He's terming out too. So I just want to say thank you because you've been real with us today about the challenges that we face as a country. But I can remember the first time you came to the Capitol to meet with the members of the Oklahoma legislature when you were elected to Congress. You came into our caucus room, and it was very obvious that you cared about small businesses, you cared about agriculture, you cared about rural Oklahoma. And that hasn't changed in the time that you've been representing both your congressional district and now representing all of us in the Senate. And that's what matters, obviously, to those of us here, whether it's the Farm Bill, as Caitlin mentioned, or the rural development we've talked about today and other things. But I just wanted to say thank you because the message you delivered the very first time I met you at the Capitol hasn't changed. And I just very much appreciate that. And we're fortunate to have you with us as well.
Well, thank you for your service, too. It's a sacrifice to serve at every level, so thank you. Appreciate that. Anything else real quick before we go to wrap it up?
Yes, on abortion and gender surgery, Paul Cole, where do you stand on this issue?
I hope just by the fact I'm in Oklahoma, I can answer that question. But this gender surgery is absurd. I mean, it's absolutely absurd, and especially having adolescents. If you're an adult, you want to make the decision yourself. I guess go for it, but don't make me pay for it. I'm not going to tell you can't get it done if that's what you want to do. I don't understand it because there's nothing inside me that says I want to be a girl. Not be a good looking girl anyway. There's nothing about that. The idea of putting makeup on, God bless you girls for doing it. You guys look beautiful. It's just not my thing. And so when you start talking about abortions, as I said, I'm a father of 3 adopted kids, and I say 3 who chose. And I literally think on almost a daily basis that those young ladies that gave birth to those 3 kids was brave enough to go through the process to give me an opportunity to be loved by these 3 kids. And people say, well, don't you love them? Yes, I do. But people always say, aren't you? You're so cool because you're such a blessing to them. And I'll tell you right now, they're a bigger blessing to me than I am to them. Right? So there's a process of that. So every baby deserves an opportunity in life. Now, what they make of that will be up to them, right? But they should have an opportunity to love someone and let us love them. But right now, I think that the best position for us to be in is to leave it in the states. And let states make their decision and continue to fight for hopefully we can ban it across the United States one day if we can, but let's do it one state at a time. I think a baby in Oklahoma is just as important as a baby in California. I think a baby in California is just as important as a baby in Massachusetts or New York. But we had a big win with the court's decision. And once again, thank God we're going to preserve all our future leaders here in Oklahoma. Because there's no telling how many leaders will be killed in the last few decades. So that's my position on both of them. Okay. Anything else, guys? Yes, ma'am.
Speaking of abortion, Project 2025 has a big focus on abortion. What do you think of that whole program?
I disagree with what Project 2025 went out and did. Not in favor of it. I haven't really done enough time to study it. But that wasn't, Congress didn't do that. I think that was Heritage.
Foundation.
Yeah, Heritage Foundation did something like that. President Trump has made it very clear he's not part of Project 2025, didn't have anything to do with it. The Democrats are trying to paint it with it. And I'm not saying that Heritage doesn't have some great ideas, but ideas and being practical is 2 different things. But I'm not, even though I haven't went through Project 2025 in depth, but I can tell you it's not something I'm supposed to do. Anything else, guys? Yes.
Zach Thomas, I'm a student athlete here. as a young adult, what advice would you give people going into the world of politics, and how can they make an impact going forward?
Yeah, so here's what I would tell you if you want to get involved in politics. Get a career first. Right? If you want to run for public office at some point, get a career and have some type of success in it, because you'll be able to relate more. You know, as I said, I don't know if I said it with you guys or not, but I think I did. We all make decisions based on two things: where to raise and our life experiences. If your life experience is only politics, you're only going to make political decisions. My life experiences was well put in place before I ever got into politics. And so get something that you're passionate about, get something that you love, and then when you decide to get into public office, you're going to actually, it's going to cause you to make a sacrifice to do it, because you're going to be stepping away from something you love, something that supports your family, and something you sacrifice more, you'll appreciate it more. You'll appreciate it, and you're willing to work harder for it. And then in the meantime, stay involved. Don't just because you're not going to get your career or doing something else, that doesn't mean you can't be involved. You can't be involved at a local level. You can't be involved at a bigger level than that. I mean, I tell people all the time that the most important elections we have that we overlook the most is our school boards and our city council races. We overlook those as a community all the time, and those are the most important ones that impact you more than Congress will ever impact you. We complain and we look at Congress to make the biggest decisions, and I'm telling you, we will not make the changes. The changes that you can make the biggest impact is going to be at your school boards and your city council. And we don't get involved with it like we should. We overlook them. And so get involved at that level too. And you can still have a career and still do that. You know, for me, I can't do anything but this. I mean, this is full time. This is what I do full time. But I would strongly say, as a student athlete, man, that's tough. I was a student athlete too. I didn't have NIL. I don't know if you guys get any NIL or not. Probably don't. But it was a struggle. I remember I got a scholarship that gave me $250 a month in cash from the judge and the attorney in my local town. I think they were trying to just get rid of me because I might have gotten in trouble a few times. But that $250 is such a big deal. I mean, it was such a huge deal. Of course, gas was 76 cents a gallon too. You guys remember those days? So, man, stay with it. If you have any questions, if you ever want to intern for a student, if there's any other students here too, after your freshman year, you got to go 1 year before it's green, but after your freshman year, start looking at an internship for it. Guys, I'm going to wrap it up because they're getting nervous, and Emma doesn't want to drive as fast as she had to get here. I just want to leave you with this. We talk about a lot of different stuff here. I find humor and all types of things, so I believe in laughing as much as I can. But I wake up every single morning and I say, love the people, love the home. And I mean that sincerely when I say that. And it's something that's dear to me, because there was a time in 2016 that I was done with politics. I was quitting, I was walking away. I was just so bitter. I mean, it's tough to wake up every single morning and know you're going to get an argument. Right? I mean, not everybody here wakes up every morning and says, I cannot wait till I get my first argument today. Right? I mean, that's the world I live in. And so it taxes you something. You just got to it gets to you. I mean, when I'm in business, I wanted 100% of business. And the reality is, there's about 50% of the people around this country that hate me just because I got an R in front of my name. You got to accept that stuff. And a lot of people will give you their opinion about it too, regardless if you're with your kids or not. And it was just kind of weighing on me. And I was done with it, man. I was done. My wife and I went on a trip because we were actually making a decision, are we going to file or are we not? And we're sitting on the boat dock early one morning having our devotion. And our point of being there was to really seek the Lord's guidance of what we're going to do. And while we're sitting there and we're praying, I was like, Lord, if you want me to do this, you're going to have to really change my heart. Really change my heart. My wife has a heart this big. I would compete with the Grinch with the smallest heart. All right, it's not that big of a heart. And he just put in my mind, love the people, love the home. And I mean, no more than he did that. I remember I looked over at my wife, and she looked at me, she said, we're running our home. I was like, oh no. That was too quick a confirmation. But ever since then, I woke up every single morning and I say, love the people, love the home. And slowly my heart did change, and now I think, wait, what an honor it is for me to do this. I'm a little kid from Westville to be the United States Senator from Oklahoma. Wow. I mean, only it happens in America, right? I started looking at more of the positive than the negatives. My glass, instead of being half empty, every morning is half full right now. And we get upset about the country because the country's in a bad shape. shape, I get it is. It's in a bad shape. But one thing I can't stand is when somebody comes up to me and tells me that they think the country's too far gone. I go, whoa, hold on a second. I travel all over the world. All over the world. And there's no place like America. There's a reason why we have an immigration issue coming into the country, not leaving the country. Because we still represent things that other people want to be part of. So while we may think it's a mess, it is, but it's still better than any other country I ever did to go to. And people will still want to come. And so this thing isn't going to be fixed overnight, but we can get it fixed. And I just want to tell you how much I appreciate you letting me be in the fight. Because as much as I get frustrated, as much as upset, and every time now and then I have a video that may go viral, you know, I still sit there and I go, I would rather be here and be in the fight than any place. Because one, I truly do love the call, and I truly do love the people, and I pray for you guys. I wouldn't say daily, but I pray for you guys quite often. And even though I don't know you guys by name, it's sincere. I'm sincerely mean that. But I can't thank you enough for honoring me the way that you guys have. And so, may God bless you. As always, may God bless the United States of America.